My name is Ruth Combs. My family has farmed the same hollow in Harlan County, Kentucky for 4 generations. When I was 6 years old, my grandmother Loretta pulled me into the root cellar on a January morning and showed me a glass jar on the second shelf. Not herbs, not tincture, but a plain white powder she kept in a mason jar, sealed with brown paper and a rubber band. She dusted a thin line of it along the base of the farmhouse bathtub, added a cup of warm water from the kettle, and walked back outside to feed the chickens. When we came in for lunch, the rust ring that had circled that tub for as long as I could remember was gone. Not faded, gone. I asked her what was in the jar. She said, "The earth already grew it. We just figured out how to ask it politely." I have carried that memory for 40 years, and I want to show you what was in that jar. There is a white powder that costs less than $1 at any hardware store. You can walk past the entire 40-foot cleaning aisle, go straight to the paint section or the wood restoration shelf, and find it in a plain container with no celebrity endorsement, no bright packaging, no promise of a miracle. The container looks like it belongs in a workshop, not a bathroom. That is exactly why most people have never touched it. But I want you to understand what this powder does before I tell you what it is. If you have a bathtub stained with rust rings from an old faucet drip, or yellow discoloration from decades of hard water, or calcium scale that has survived every scrub brush you have ever owned, this powder dissolves them. Not at the surface, at the molecular level. 1 application, 20 minutes, no scrubbing. What comes off is the stain itself, chemically disassembled, rinsed away as if it was never there. I spent 5 years working as a nurse in Lexington. I know what the doctors know. I know what the labels say. And I know what my grandmother kept in a mason jar on the second shelf of the root cellar for 40 years. And I can tell you that what she knew was not magic. It was just chemistry. Chemistry that nobody profits from explaining. Now, let me take you back to where this powder began, because the history matters. The year was 1776. Not in Philadelphia, but in Uppsala, Sweden. A pharmaceutical chemist named Carl Wilhelm Scheele was working after hours in a cramped back room behind an apothecary shop. Scheele was a pharmacy clerk who conducted experiments with borrowed equipment and second-hand chemicals. He was not wealthy. He was not celebrated. He was thorough. That evening, boiling down the juice of sorrel leaves, he watched white crystals form at the bottom of his flask. He tasted them the way chemists did in that era and noted a sharp, clean sourness. He had just isolated what would later be named oxalic acid. He documented its ability to dissolve mineral deposits and rust stains on contact, published his findings in Latin and Swedish, and died 14 years later at the age of 43, poisoned by the very chemicals he spent his life studying. His discovery was buried in academic journals for over a century. Almost nobody outside a university chemistry department knew what Scheele had found. Then, in 1882, a chemist named George William Hoffman was cooking a pot of rhubarb for supper in Indianapolis, Indiana. When the pot cooled, he noticed something that stopped him cold. The pot had been tarnished for years, blackened with mineral deposits and grease stains that no amount of scrubbing had ever touched. After cooking rhubarb in it, the pot was gleaming. Hoffman was not just any cook. He sold cleaning products across the American Midwest, and he knew immediately that the rhubarb had done something no commercial product on his own shelf could do. He isolated the active compound. It was oxalic acid, the exact same substance Scheele had crystallized from sorrel a century earlier. Hoffman formulated a cleaning powder around this acid and began selling it in brown paper bags to the taverns and saloons of Indiana. Barkeepers used it to polish their brass rails, their copper kettles, their iron stovetops. The product worked so well that word spread from saloon to saloon across the state, and then across the entire country. He named it after his most loyal customers, Barkeeper's Friend. 140 years later, that exact same formula is still manufactured in Indianapolis. The same oxalic acid, the same chemistry, the same results. Nothing about it has changed because nothing needed to change. Now here is the part that most folks have never been told, and this is where my years as a nurse come in useful. When oxalic acid contacts a rust stain, a specific chemical process occurs called a double displacement reaction. The rust itself, the iron oxide that has chemically bonded to your porcelain or enamel, meets the oxalate ions from the acid. They combine to form a new compound called iron oxalate. Iron oxalate is completely water-soluble. It dissolves and rinses away. The stain does not get pushed around. It does not get masked. It gets chemically taken apart, molecule by molecule, and washed down the drain. Now I want to stop here and be plain about something, because I spent 5 years working alongside physicians, and I know how to read a study. Research on chelation chemistry, the process by which an acid binds to metal ions, confirms that oxalic acid binds with calcium, iron, and magnesium ions more aggressively than any common household surfactant. The University of Tennessee Agricultural Extension ran a series of materials tests in the early 1990s documenting oxalic acid's effectiveness on mineral scale with no detectable damage to porcelain, enamel, fiberglass, or ceramic tile substrates when used at standard household concentrations. The National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health classifies oxalic acid as moderately hazardous, meaning it demands respect and basic protective equipment, but it is not in the same category as the chlorine bleach most people already keep under their sinks. This is fundamentally different from what is sitting on the cleaning aisle. I want you to understand why. Most spray bottles on that shelf use surfactants. Surfactant is just a formal word for soap molecule, something that loosens surface grime and floats it temporarily away. But mineral deposits, rust rings, calcium scale, and hard water stains are not surface grime. They are chemically bonded to the porcelain or enamel at a molecular level. Soap cannot break those bonds. Scrubbing cannot break those bonds. No amount of effort applied to the surface changes what has happened underneath the surface. Only a targeted chemical reaction, one that attacks the specific mineral compound doing the bonding, can dissolve them permanently. Oxalic acid does exactly that. One application does what 50 bottles of bathroom spray cannot do in 50 years. Now let me show you exactly how to use it, because the process matters and I want you to do this safely. Go to a hardware store, not a grocery store, not a big box home section, a hardware store. Walk past the cleaning aisle entirely. Go to the paint section or the wood restoration section. Look for a container labeled oxalic acid powder or sometimes wood bleach. It will cost between $1 and $3. It will look unremarkable. That is fine. Before you begin, put on rubber gloves. Put on safety glasses. This is an acid, and I will not pretend otherwise. It demands the same basic respect you would give bleach or any other chemical in your home. Open the bathroom window or turn on the exhaust fan. You want airflow. Mix 2 tablespoons of the powder into 1 quart of warm water in a plastic bucket. Stir until the powder dissolves completely. Apply the solution to the stained areas using a sponge or a spray bottle. Let it sit for 10 to 20 minutes. For stains that have built up over decades, the kind that look like they were put there by a previous owner and never touched since, you can let it sit for up to 30 minutes. Do not scrub. I know that feels wrong. We have been trained to believe that cleaning requires effort, friction, elbow grease. It does not. Not here. The chemistry is already working at the molecular level while you are standing in another room. Leave it alone. After the waiting period, rinse the entire surface thoroughly with clean water. Then look at your bathtub. For severe stains that have accumulated over 20 or 30 years, a second treatment may be needed. Mix a slightly stronger solution, 3 tablespoons per quart, and repeat the process exactly as before. In almost every case, 2 applications are enough to restore a tub that most people would have paid $500 to have professionally reglazed. After your final treatment, rinse one more time and dry with a clean towel. What you are looking at is the original porcelain or enamel surface that has been hiding under mineral deposits for years, possibly decades. Now let me be honest about what this will not do, because I will not let you build this up and then be disappointed. Oxalic acid does not repair physical damage. If your bathtub enamel is chipped or cracked, the acid will clean the stain, but it will not fill the chip. That is a different problem requiring a different tool. Oxalic acid is also not appropriate for marble, granite, or natural stone. The acid can etch the surface. For those materials, you will want a pH-neutral cleaner. And if your staining comes from mold or mildew rather than mineral deposits, oxalic acid is the wrong tool entirely. Mildew is a biological problem. Mineral scale is a chemical one. Know which one you have before you start. This is a quiet tool. It is not a fast one in the dramatic sense. It requires patience, not scrubbing. Know what it is for, and it will serve you faithfully. Ask it to do something it was not built to do, and it will disappoint you. That is not the tool's fault. Now here is the part that should make you think. Let me tell you what this powder costs to use for a year. A standard container of oxalic acid powder sells for $2 to $3 and contains enough material for dozens of applications. The cost per use, measured honestly, is somewhere between 5 and 15 cents. Over a decade, maintaining a bathtub with this powder costs less than a single bottle of name brand bathroom spray. Compare that to what most households actually spend. A standard bottle of name brand bathroom cleaner costs between $8 and $15. The average American household buys 6 to 12 bottles of bathroom cleaning products every year. That is somewhere between $70 and $180 annually on products that manage stains but do not eliminate them. Over a decade, one family spends between $700 and $1,800 on bathroom cleaners alone. And when the stains finally become too deep for spray bottles to handle, homeowners call a professional. The bathtub reglazing industry charges between $300 and $600 for a single refinishing job. Full bathtub replacement starts at $1,500 and can exceed $8,000 with installation, plumbing, and tile work. Every dollar of that could have been prevented by a powder that costs less than a cup of coffee. Now here's what I want you to understand, and I say this not as someone who distrusts medicine or science, because I have seen what good medicine does, and I believe in it. I say this as a nurse who understands how systems work. There is no money in a jar of oxalic acid powder that costs $2 and lasts you a year. There is very good money in selling you the same spray bottle every 3 weeks. The global household cleaning products market generates over $200 billion in revenue every year. Surface cleaners alone account for more than $68 billion of that total. Companies like Procter & Gamble, Reckitt Benckiser, Clorox, and SC Johnson do not survive on products that eliminate the problem permanently. They survive on repeat purchase. A product that solves the problem once and makes itself unnecessary is the cleaning industry's worst nightmare. So they do not ban it. They do not fight it. They do something far more effective. They ignore it. They flood the market with hundreds of competing products in bright packaging with scientific-sounding names and celebrity endorsements. They spend billions on advertising campaigns that train an entire generation to believe that cleaning is a weekly ritual requiring specialized branded products. They make the cleaning aisle so crowded, so loud, so overwhelming that a plain white container of oxalic acid on the bottom shelf of the paint section becomes invisible. This is not a conspiracy. It is just how the money flows. Professional cleaners have known about oxalic acid for decades. Hotel housekeeping departments use it to restore bathtubs between guests. Marine restoration crews use it to strip mineral deposits from fiberglass boat hulls. Woodworkers use it to bleach out water stains and return aged lumber to its original color. Industrial cleaning operations buy it in 55-pound bulk bags because nothing else works at that scale with that economy. The professionals know. The companies know. The only people who were not told are the people paying $15 a bottle for products that barely work. My grandmother Loretta did not know the economics of the cleaning industry. She never thought about shelf placement or advertising budgets. She only knew what the hollow provided, and that a woman who could keep her family and her farmhouse clean and healthy from what she could find or buy for pennies did not need to ask permission from anyone. She kept that mason jar on the second shelf of the root cellar for 40 years. She used it on the bathtub, on the cast iron, on the stained enamel of the farmhouse sink. She dusted it, added water, walked away, and came back to clean. The powder did not stop working. They just stopped telling you it existed. Now, I am not telling you to throw away your bathroom cleaner. I am telling you what existed before it, and what still works. So here is what I want you to do. First, this weekend, go to a hardware store, not a grocery store, and find oxalic acid powder or wood bleach in the paint or wood restoration section. It costs between $1 and $3. Second, before you touch it, gather rubber gloves and safety glasses. Open a window or turn on the exhaust fan in your bathroom. This is an acid. It requires basic respect. Third, mix 2 tablespoons of powder into 1 quart of warm water in a plastic bucket until fully dissolved. Apply it to your stained surface with a sponge or spray bottle. Fourth, set a timer for 20 minutes and walk away. Do not scrub. Come back when the timer sounds, rinse thoroughly with clean water, and dry with a towel. Fifth, if the stain is very old, repeat with a slightly stronger mix, 3 tablespoons per quart, and wait again. In almost every case, 2 treatments are enough. Store what remains in the original container with the label visible, out of reach of children and pets, and away from bleach or other chemicals. Until then, walk past that cleaning aisle, go to the paint section, and spend $2 on the thing that has been working since 1882. Tell me in the comments, what is the worst stain you have ever tried to get rid of, and what did you try? Because the women who kept this country alive through hard winters and harder years knew things we are only just beginning to remember. Don't let it die with a generation.